Always wanted to learn how to add an inner shadow inside of Photoshop, but never knew exactly where to start? Well, if that's the case, then you're in luck, since in this video I'm going to walk you through the entire process and show you how easy it is to do so. I'm Andrew, and you're watching an Envato Tuts Plus tutorial. So what is an inner shadow? Well, it's a layer style effect that's used to simulate depth within a flat image by creating an offset shadow within a shape in order to make it look as if it was cut out. Depending on the type of project that you're working on, we can use the effect on anything from a photo to a basic shape or even a text segment. The process of adding the inner shadow is really simple, as we will get to see in the following moments. For example purposes, let's say that we have a simple shape to which we want to add the effect to. We are going to start by heading over to the Layers panel and then selecting the layer containing our shape. Once the layer is selected, we're going to head over to the panel's bottom section and click on the FX button, which will open up a list of all the available layer styles that we can use. Here we'll want to click on Inner Shadow, which will immediately bring up the layer style window. We can achieve the same result by double-clicking on the layer itself and then checking the effect from within the style's left-sided panel, or by heading over to Layer, Layer Style, Inner Shadow. Once the layer style window is visible, we can easily access all the different available settings and options, which are divided into two separate categories, the top one being structure. The first option that we'll see here is blend mode, which allows us to control how the effect blends with our shape in terms of color. As with drop shadows, we'll want to leave it set to multiply or linear burn, so that it ends up darkening the content to which it's being applied to. That being said, we can also adjust the color of the shadow itself, which might come in handy depending on the color value used by the actual content. Moving on down, we have opacity, which allows us to adjust the transparency for shadow using either the horizontal slider or the percentage input box. We then have angle, which allows us to change the angle of the light source using either the radial spinner or the value input box. If you're using the latest version of Adobe CC, you can manually position the shadow by clicking and then dragging it using the mouse. As you can see, there's an option called Use Global Light, which comes enabled by default, since it allows us to keep a uniform light angle for all our effects, thus giving us the most cohesive look possible. Next, we have distance, which allows us to move the shadow further or closer to the edges of our subject. In some cases, you might want to leave it set to 0 pixels, so that the effect will remain perfectly centered. If we move on down, we have choke, which controls the way the shadow gradually fades out at the edges. For a typical shadow, you'll want to leave it set to 0%, but for harder ones, you might want to increase it. We then have size, which allows us to change the apparent size and softness of the shadow itself. At this point, we've reached the second category of settings that have to do with the quality of our effect. The first one is contour, which allows us to change the fall off of the shadow in a nonlinear manner by using a different curve profile. Personally, I never use this option, but it might come in handy if you're trying to achieve more intricate effects. Next, we have the anti-alias checkbox, which allows us to improve the quality of our shadow while having a negligible performance impact, which is why I recommend you always keep it checked. Finally, we have noise, which allows us to add texture to our shadow, as long as we don't use a really high value, since it might alter its look in an unwanted manner. If needed, we can always save the current effect settings by using the Make Default button, or we can fully reset them using the Reset to Default one. Once we are done adjusting the shadow's different settings, we can hit OK, and the layers panel will update itself by displaying a little FX button next to the layer to which the effect was added to. If needed, we can easily adjust its different settings at any time by simply double-clicking on the effect itself and then fine-tuning them accordingly. And that's pretty much all you have to do. As always, I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you in the next one.